Nita and I were asked by the British government to write a report on engagement, trying to answer essentially three questions. What is it? Is there any evidence it matters? And if there's evidence it matters, what, as it turns out, were the four things that were present in organisations that really were managing to harness the full potential and capabilities of their people to create organisational success? Firstly, there's a strategic narrative, i.e. there is a story that people really understand about where the organisation's been, about where it is today, and where it aspires to go in the future. Not something lost in a dense strategic document, you might need that for other reasons, something that provides the beacon to which we're headed and the mechanisms by which we have a common language through the organisation. And that thing we've all heard 1,000 times about Kennedy at NASA asking a man with a broom what his job was, and his answer was, "My job, Mr. President, sir, is to help put a man on the moon." That's what we're talking about here, is the strategic narrative of where we're trying to get to that inspires me, something I can relate my job to, something that brings purpose to all our activities. The second thing that we found in organisations that were doing this well is to do with the person who manages me, my local leader. They do basically three things well. The first thing they do is that I'm clear what success in my role will look like, and I'm given some scope to bring myself to that role, to harness my creativity and my energy to do the things that will deliver what success in the job will look like. My boss also treats me not as some anonymous human resource or human capital. I feel clocked as an individual, as a human being, and feeling that, having that relationship, that bigger relationship, you get more of me, and that's manifested in a whole range of things. There may be practical things, there may be particular training I want, there may be particular things I'd like to be involved with. The third thing these managers are doing extremely well is they're constantly coaching their people. There was a big bit of very compelling research recently to show that the most successful organisations coach their people one time per week. Now, not a great formal session, but when people are doing things well, it's acknowledged, it's reinforced, I feel good about it, I grow. And if I'm indulging in dysfunctional behaviours, these are also addressed. In a positive vein, but they are addressed and not walked past.
The third thing that organisations that really engage their staff do well is that they listen. They listen, they allow people to talk across silos. There's a real sense of flow of ideas and energy and listening through the organisation. In any organisation, all the evidence is when something's going to go wrong, somebody always knows. And if you've got a really good listening voice and the people in your organisation really trust you, then they will tell you when something's about to go wrong. And that's a much cheaper way of guarding against reputational risk than lawyers or PR companies cleaning up after an event. So this really authentic sense of listening. And of course that does mean that you have to make sure that the workforce is informed. If you really see people as part of the solution and as it were, not part of the problem, then you really make them partners in the success of the organisation. And the fourth thing that we found was this sense of integrity. In other words, that organisations kept it real. So how they said they were, what their values were reflected in day-to-day behaviours, in how people acted, in what the culture of the organisation was. So in other words, people didn't pretend that, oh, our people are our greatest asset, when actually everybody who works there knows that there's a culture of bullying and harassment, or there's lots of grievances. Because if you have a gap between how you say you are and how you actually are, of course that creates huge mistrust, and you definitely don't get engaged employees in an organisation where there is mistrust.